Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Monday, January 9th, 2017. Yep, it is early Monday morning, around 1 a.m., 1:02 a.m. to be exact. And I'm kicking back, doing it at a pizzeria, a place called Squiggy's New York Style Pizza, which is located at 207 Southwest 2nd Street, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Zip code 33301. It's in the beautiful historical Hermarshy Street, or Hermarshy District of Fort Lauderdale. Open from lunch to dinner. Open late. I'll say 6 days, 6 nights a week. The phone number is 954-522-6655. Tell them LL3, look third. Sent, set, send it, referred it to you. I'll refer it to you. Preferred it to you. Sent you. Look third sent you. He knows who I am. Tony and a few chaps here are good folks. They know how to make pizza. I have to admit it. So, yes. And I'll be talking about the horrific event that happened down at the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport. I was having some coffee in the afternoon. I see CNN really totally like the big headline news and what was going on, and had to do a show down at Miami. So instead of taking the tri-rail, I took the bus, and I found out tri-rail was shut down. The railroads were completely was on a halt, and I had to reroute, go all the way around, and we got stopped at Dania. So I had to do a little bus hopping here and there. Nice little delays, but let you know I am alive and well, of course. That's why when you hear me speaking. And it's interesting. I was like listening to conversations. The bus driver from the dispatch was telling them they first was like one shooter, then they said it was three shooters, three suspects, and vice versa, and back like going back and forth. It's like how accurate the information is supposed to be coming out. So I am going to be talking about it. And of course, you got many folks out there. Some folks they need tougher firearm laws. Well, they have no merit anyway, as far as I'm concerned. I say that out of respect. So I'm not going to be going too crazy, but I noticed some of the information was coming out, and even in the person's conditions, seems pretty traditional, and the patterns were very coexisting. So I was just trying to find out how many articles I want to read about. 'Cause I know the Sun Sentinel, they still want answers question. FBI never gave them any answers on the questions they try to get them, and which that's good. I have to give some of those reporters credit on that because you have to be the governmental watchdogs. That's like part of their obligations. I don't want to care about the whole fluff and crap and how many cows are getting birthed and so forth. I've seen some of these articles like, good grief, I could just wipe my butt on it and just flush down the toilet. But that's a good thing. I gotta give them that for trying to make that happen because a lot of people are concerned. Plus, I noticed too, I was like chatting with a lot of my friends out in this area, and many of them aren't really buying the story. There's a lot of questions on the gentleman's character, Esteban Santiago. So, what I decided to do, I'll be talking about that, few things about him, and what happened over there, and some of even the political agenda. There was one bill. So funny about one bill wanted to ban certain firearms, which I read it in the Sun Sentinel Friday morning. Then of course before that, open carry at prohibited places. So you can see how I'm seeing this as more of a political agenda as well. But okay, I'll start off with this one here. Came from 21st Century Wire. Actually came out on the Friday. So what happened was if I would have had to work this past weekend too, so I was like pretty busy. Take care of a few of my personal responsibilities. All right, this is so it'll be more like the Fort Lauderdale shooter. I call it actually Sirhan Revisited. So that's I'll be my title, but you'll find out. I'm digressing. All right, it says here. This is from the 21st Century Wire.com. Came out a few days ago, the 6th, and it says here another American known wolf, Fort Lauderdale shooter known to FBI, worked for security amid backdrop of mass drills. Worked for security sounds like Omar Mateen revisited as well, right? Something to think about. So I was going to read this. It's by Sean Shelton as it starts off. Another shocking active shooter incident rocks America. This time, according to Florida's Broward County Sheriff Department, 13 people were shot, including 5 dead, after the apparent shooting rampage took place at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport yesterday. At the moment, there's still no clear motive for the shooting attack and no evidence linking to the suspect of terror. However, officials have yet to rule out the possibility of terrorism. Time of the shocking attack cannot be overstated, as there was a major U.S. intelligence review over an alleged Russian attack influence on November 26th election that was scheduled the very same day. According to authorities, the suspected airport shooter, 26-year-old Esteban Santiago Ruiz, checked the declared handgun inside his luggage, later retrieving at the Fort Lauderdale Airport's Terminal 2 baggage claim. Santiago then reportedly lowered the gun in the bathroom, came out of the terminal, opening fire on fellow travelers, including a series of headshots. After the shooting spree, the suspect was reported to have calmly turned himself to the police. According to Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel, the shooter is in custody and unharmed, and no law enforcement officers fired any shots. Hey, hold on. Good to see you. You too, buddy. Sorry about that. This is someone I met, and I will be back. All right, cool. Yeah, it was just a friend of mine I haven't seen in a while, so just in better health than before. So give her my little blessing. No tea. All right, so I'm gonna continue on here as it reads about any shots. Okay, it's interesting about Scott Israel because he is involved with Homeland Security. I know he retired as a SWAT guy, but I was like looking at his LinkedIn site. I like what it says here. He retired from the Fort Lauderdale Police Department as considered of their SWAT team, Homeland Security Director, and Captain of Community Policing. Ugh, I don't like that at all. Sounds like a conflict of interest, but I will continue on. I will add that to the memo so you guys can see it for yourselves. And it says, I'll continue on. The world of series events is strange to see the least, but the oddities didn't stop there. Santiago Ruiz's U.S. military background includes the service in the Puerto Rican National Guard in 2007, according to the Department of Defense. Santiago Ruiz was listed as a combat engineer who has been deployed to Iraq in April 2010, returning to the soil in 2011. Later, in November 2014, following move to Alaska, later became a member of the Alaska National Guard. In August 2016, Santiago Ruiz transferred to the inactive Ready Reserve. Additionally, Santiago Ruiz was said to be deployed, but as an yet unnamed Anchorage security company while living in Alaska, according to the Associated Press of Miami's local CBS News affiliate, which is Channel 6. The Pentagon said Santiago Ruiz, went AWOL several times as a specialist during a stint with the Alaska National Guard and was demoted to private first class. The Associated Press reported he was given a general discharge, which is lower than an honorable discharge. Earlier reports that Santiago Ruiz flew on a flight from Canada. Air Canada promptly denied that the suspected airport shooter was on any of their flights. Other U.S. mainstream outlets later stated that he arrived on an abound Delta Airlines flight instead. And according to Don from Twitter, we confirm we have no record of a passenger by the name of Esteban Santiago or checked gun on any of our flights to Fort Lauderdale. Increasingly, former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer was on the scene of the shooting and was live tweeting. That's very interesting. Okay, so what a coincidence we would say, right? Another known wolf, as 21 Wired has documented over the years, many so-called shooting terror attacks involve individuals being monitored by security services prior to an alleged act taking place, a place where a lone wolf graduates into the ranks of a known wolf. In fact, very often being watched by authorities exhibiting all the tail signs of a patsy or an informant working either for law enforcement or agency, intelligence agency. Historically, government operators have been made of low-life criminals or mentally disturbed individuals to fulfill various roles in entrapment stings or sometimes as a bona fide actor in an actual attack. In any case, alleged attackers and security agencies have a dicey relationship, making any links between them highly suspect in nature. In January 2015, a strategic security intelligence service think tank known as Cellphone Group reported that a larger national security threat resides with radicals who have a lengthy criminal background with known ties to security agencies. The Southbound Group, a New York think tank, said a better term for lone wolves would be known wolves, given how many are already known to the Western Intelligence Agency before they strike. These individuals acting alone or in groups, small groups, have been on radar of various agencies and organizations, highlighting the difficulty of effectively monitoring and managing people at the nexus of criminality and terrorism. It says in a report this week, Fort Lauderdale shooting story rapidly emerged out of the corporate media halls, looking to sell the public on the latest tragic shooting in America. The Howard International Airport shooting has elements of high-profile shooting events in recent history, such as the TSA LAX shooting, which is in Los Angeles. That was on July 4th, 2002 to be exact. The Tucson shooting, Orlando Post Night Club shooting, San Bernardino shooting attack, the Chattanooga military base shooting siege, as well as the aspects of the Aurora shooting and the Grand Theater shooting in Lafayette, and many others. It is interesting because a lot of those areas, most of those areas were in firearm-free zones, and the Tucson shooting, Judge Rowley, I think his name was the I considered the primary target as far as I'm concerned, even though the Congresswoman, and I forgot the name off the top of my head. Oh my gosh, shoot, forgive me on that. Was got shot as well, but I will continue on here. Is Fort Lauderdale Airport shooter another case of a known wolf triggered into action? This parrot Fort Lauderdale Airport shooter Santiago Ruiz, who is to be a Puerto Rican, was born in New Jersey, lived in Alaska, and was well known to authorities, having recently undergone a mental health evaluation after allegedly visiting an FBI office in Alaska, where he claimed he was under CIA mind control, with voices telling him to join ISIS. Interesting. So, a possible Manchurian candidate. A lot of us were saying that, right? They say last November he walked to the FBI's office in Anchorage, Alaska, claiming that his mind was being controlled by the CIA and that was forcing him to join ISIS. He appeared agitated and incoherent and made disjoint statements. And although he said he didn't wish to hurt anyone, agents were concerned by his erratic behavior and decided to call local authorities, a senior federal law enforcement official said. Local police took him to a local medical facility for evaluation, and the FBI closed its assessment of Santiago after conducting database reviews, interagency checks, and interviews with family members, officials said. Shades of the Manchurian candidate were also told that the suspect's aunt had flagged his mentally unstable condition previously, according to the USA Today. Yet the troubling episode is not part of an emerging profile of a deeply disturbed man described by his Aunt Friday as someone who had lost his mind. Maria Luisa Ruiz of Union City, New Jersey, said her nephew, who had moved to Alaska for work as a security guard, only recently began to show signs of instability. Like a month ago, it was like lost his mind, he said. She said he saw things, inclusions of Santiago's alleged voices in his head, supposedly triggered by the CIA. Immediately recalls another bizarre case that was also difficult to comprehend, the Navy Yard shooter from 2013. Here's a passage from the 21 report discussing the apparent Navy Yard shooter, Aaron Alexis. Rather than get caught up in the fear campaign sold us by our favorite news anchor zombies, it is important to consider another aspect of these mass shootings by making a tally of the trigger points that media uses to manipulate public perception as they carefully propagandize certain elements within the crisis, making sure to elicit the right reaction from every major demographic. It's is this where we're seeing the aftermath of the Fort Lauderdale shooting? Harry.com, one moment. Harry.com said, details about supposedly troubled Santiago Cruz. The shooter was whose troubled behavior has already drawn the attention of the FBI, Army, and Anchorage police. Arrived Friday afternoon at the busy airport on a flight from Alaska with the gun used in the shooting properly stored in his checked baggage, NBC News reports. One report said the shooter who lived in Alaska had no other luggage but the gun, which federal rules allow a person to declare at a ticket counter to check under a plane but not carry on. In addition to Santiago Ruiz's lengthy time with the military and National Guard in recent years, the suspected shooter was involved in a various crimes. Here's a passage from the Daily Beast describing some of Santiago's background. According to charging documents provided by the Anchorage prosecutor's office to the Daily Beast on January 10, 2016, Santiago verbally assaulted his then girlfriend, a 40-year-old mother of one child from a previous marriage, whom Daily Beast is not naming, though through a locked bathroom door, telling her to get the fuck out, bitch. That's what it says. After he forced his way in by breaking down the door, he smacked her in the head and strangled her. By the time police arrived, Santiago had fled the scene. Santiago was arrested days later and released on the condition that he has no contact with the victim. But in February, Anchorage police found him at his girlfriend's residence, and he was charged for violating the conditions of his release. That case is still pending. Alaska court records show a criminal record under Santiago's name for minor traffic infractions, including operating a vehicle without insurance and a broken taillight. Records show his landlord evicted him for non-payment of rent in February 2015. The assault case was involved in March when Santiago entered into a deferred prosecution agreement, an alternative to adjudication where prosecutors agreed to dismiss the charges in exchange for Esteban's completion of requirements, the details which are unknown, while Anchorage Municipal Prosecutor Seneca Deno told the Daily Beast that previous changes against Santiago are unlikely to be dropped following the airport shooting. You still have to wonder what requirements were asked of Santiago Ruiz to get the alleged assault charge dropped from his record in the first place, given brutal nature of them. Fox News echoes a Sun Sentinel report why the gunman may have chosen Florida was unclear. He had no clear connection to the state from relatives in the Naples area, a 2-hour drive away, the Sun Sentinel reported. The same Fox report adds the following about Santiago Ruiz's alleged lengthy mental health battle. Brian Santiago said his brother never spoke him directly about medical issues. We have not talked for the past 3 weeks, Brian Santiago said. That's a bit unusual. I'm in shock. He was a very serious person. He was a normal person. Mass shooting distraction. Another aspect to these highly emotive and polarizing known wolf shooting events is that usually they dominate the U.S. media coverage for several days, as one charge elements of an alleged shooter attacker are propagandized, such as Santiago Ruiz' Palestinian scarf image on seen on the left is a photo that seized upon by Fox News anchors who fused Santiago Ruiz' alleged ISIS-like hand gesture with the Gaza-Israeli conflict. The shocking scene at Fort Lauderdale's Hollywood International Airport occurred at the same exact day. The U.S. intelligence leaders briefed President-elect Donald Trump on so-called Russian hack allegations in the lead-up to the 2016 election. Back in September 2016, while examining the aftermath of the New York, New Jersey bomb plot attack, we analyzed whether a deeper social engineering agenda might have been at play as part of the geographic drama unfolded in Syria, appeared to be masked by media. When looking deeper, we discovered overlapping stories that coincided along the lone wolf NYC bomber. Here's a passage that discussed the NYC attack that seemed to bear Western coverage regarding a vicious airstrike campaign that killed dozens of members of Syria's army. You have to wonder where the events in New York and New Jersey, also a weapon of mass destruction following major international embarrassment for the United States, both at home and abroad, the brutal strike campaign in Syria that killed over 70 Syrian troops. This unlikely bombing incident just happened to also coincide with the UN General Assembly in New York City, where President Obama was delivering, among other speeches, in his war on terror. The city suddenly on high terror alert. Obama quickly, confidently, and comfortably used the center stage spotlight at the UN, shifting into national security mode, boasting how quickly his police force solved the case. It was almost if he was ready for the event that weekend. Similarly, you have to you have to consider if this new high-profile shooting event at Fort Lauderdale's Hollywood International Airport will dominate the news cycle as the U.S. intelligence community scrambled to prove Russian hack allegations over the week. On January 4th, ABC News reported the following: a classified report request by President Barack Obama detailing Russia's alleged role in cyber attacking during the U.S. presidential election dating back in 2008 is now complete, and he is expected to receive the first briefing findings on Thursday afternoon. U.S. officials tell ABC News. The President-elect Trump, who said last week he would also receive his briefing on the matter on Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, is scheduled to receive his briefing on Friday. Both briefings will be conducted by the heads of relevant agents, including the Office of the Director of the National Intelligence, the National Security Agency, the FBI, and the CIA. The U.S. officials denied claims from Trump that special briefing was delayed to the U.S. intelligence community could strengthen its case against Russia. Officials instead said there may have been a scheduling disconnect or some confusion on part of the Trump transition team. Interestingly, other explosive high-profile stories went to the back burner, such as the Chicago kidnapping and teen torture story, and the fall of CNN's Don Lemon following his egregious comments after the tragic racially motivated attack. Media Memory reports the second shooter at Terminal 1. This is very interesting now. So, during the later hours of the U.S. mainstream media coverage, networks like CNN were still floating the possibility of a second shooter as reports emerged of shots fired at the adjacent terminal housing United Airlines Terminal 1. Interestingly, local reports also reported eyewitnesses accounts of a second gunman involved in the Fort Lauderdale shooting. Here's a passage from the ABC News affiliate discussing the reports of a second gunman at the Fort Lauderdale shooting. All day I've heard people talk about the second incidences. Katie Rutledge wrote on Instagram, after waiting for the tarmac for hours and hunting someone down to get our bags, we are now waiting for a bus so that we can leave the airport. There was panic when authorities feared there was a second gunman. Law enforcement asked travelers to seek shelter. Fear prompted many to say their final goodbyes to loved ones. Some frightened parents were in tears as they tried to protect their children. The aspects of case seemingly disappeared for media outlets following Santiago Cruz's arrest. The phenomenon of multiple shooters being immediately reported after the apparent mass shooting event was also echoed during both Orlando nightclub shooting and the San Benito attack in 2015. This is interesting because what they're saying is it's got one fall guy right now. And that's why, yes, when I was on the bus, I heard about maybe 3 shooters, according to the bus driver they got from dispatch. But I will proceed. Later in the evening, the Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel confirmed there was no second shooter, despite previous reports. The suspect was being interrogated by the FBI. The statement was in stark contrast to multiple witness statements made on national TV, placing this series of shots or perhaps an additional series of shots and subsequent crowds fleeing at the panic at Terminal 1. That would either be instead of Terminal 2. In addition to it, this wasn't just an anomaly. This was backed by at least 2 different witnesses, on CNN, perhaps, and other reports, which 21 Wire has yet to collate here. Was in the case of something happening to Terminal 1, either part of a drill or another gunman, which was a memory hold by the media and DHS, or could this be we are looking at a plant witnesses who got their lines wrong? This is a fair question to ask, considering we are talking about multiple witnesses stating shots and crowds panicking in terminals other than the official story in Terminal 2. Here are 4 alternative witnesses. Witness 1, CNN coverage of the active shooter festival at Fort Lauderdale Airport reveals yet another anomaly in their story. CNN reported the alleged shooter, Esteban Santiago, shot 5 people dead in the Delta Terminal 2, and yet all the witnesses reported 4 shots fired in the United Terminal 1. When this witness, a father who flew in from Chicago, tells the United T1 shots fired, CNN reporters Boris Sanchez appears to panic, possibly then receiving a feed in his ear that essentially tells the witness, "You are wrong. There are no shots fired in the United Terminal 1. This was bad reporting or bad stage management by CNN." Watch. There's a video on that. And of course, witness 2, immediately after CNN's Boris Sanchez mixed up with the man flying from Chicago at United Terminal 1, another CNN witness was suddenly produced by going the name of Ryan Ward, interviewed by Jim Scioto, then comes in using very scripted language, apparently in an attempt to clean up the inconsistent statements of the last witness. Ryan Ward describes the mayhem, people running, luggage flying, and people screaming, gunmen coming, even though he admits he was not in Delta Terminal 2, where police report the actual shooting took place. Ward claims he was in the wheelchair because of back surgery, but then claimed he got up and ran over to save a little girl. And I ran back over and pushed the mom into a corner and laid on top of her. Then he says that it does sound like an unsubstantiated second threat, but people certainly weren't acting like it. He was mirroring identical language by the previous CNN reporters. Coincidence? Even more oddly, Ward claims he was flying JetBlue. And that JetBlue staff were really great. Only problem is that JetBlue is in Terminal 3 and not in T1 or T2. There's a video for that as well. And of course, another third witness testifying multiple gunmen on the scene, although terminal location being referenced by this third witness is somewhat unclear. Also, there was an additional media report by IntelliHub of a pilot in uniform and on site who testified about a loud commotion with police in pursuit of a perpetrator seen in Terminal 1. A stark contrast of the official story says, official to the official story, the police believe that there was another shooting in Terminal 1 that law enforcement and FBI are likely covering up. I could hear females screaming and people running away from Terminal 1. The pilot says he feels that it was definitely some kind of combined effort to attack the airport. In addition to that, here's a fifth witness seen in this unconfirmed cell phone video from a female passenger out of the airport tarmac, apparently from Terminal 1, and reference a second shooter event located after the TSA barrier, which seems to be different location to the baggage area. So, editor's note: if readers have any other witness reports of a second shooter or other second fires in Terminal 2, please leave them the comments below. All right. Here's an ABC News feature where Mark Leah, an apparent eyewitness, later photographed the crime scene, who came face to face with Santiago Cruz, who also rather incredibly managed to not get shot during the encounter. Interesting there, huh? And I'll go here. Fort Lauderdale's active shooter drills. Very often preceding an apparent shooting attack, there is presence of massive casualty drills. Fort Lauderdale was no exception. In 2015, the following: at a Fort Lauderdale cinema Wednesday, two men in camouflage gear calmly walked down the aisle and fired rifles and handguns at moviegoers. 27 volunteers were injured in three theaters during the drill. Fort Lauderdale police guard and escort paramedics were in protective gear to tend to the wounded actors, even though the shooters weren't captured, and blank gunfire echoed elsewhere in the River Rock movie complex. Agency's goal is to speed up paramedics' response during mass killings, domestic calls, and other violent incidences. Similarly, in June of 2016, an interagency meeting described the future protocols regarding mass drills. The meeting, held every quarter, is an opportunity for agencies to coordinate with another one and discuss the later techniques in fighting domestic terror attacks. Last month, agencies participated in an active shooter exercise in the Fort Lauderdale Postal Facility. Hey, what a coincidence! Probably up the road somewhere. Yeah, because I live in Fort Lauderdale, so I can say that. In February, the group participated in Operation Heat Shield, consisting of weapons of mass destruction active shooting drill. Sheriff Scott Israel, Broward County Sheriff's Office, and Sheriff Rick Brashaw, Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, said these training exercises are important. With a large law enforcement effort to tackle the active shooter, you have to wonder why and how these events seem to coincide with the major attacks on U.S. soil. There's a YouTube video on that. Peaky truth. So check it out. Dupes, informants, and pawns. Additionally, as we mentioned before, during the aftermath of 2014's Canadian shooting Parliament in Ottawa, we outlined many of the primary makers used in certain terror-related events globally and other mass casualty incidences often seen in America. The shocking event, like other bizarre attacks in recent years, have often distorted public opinion, pushing the populace towards new security measures in the wake of heavily coordinated and stylized crimes. The suspect of Parliament Hill and National War Memorial shooter Michael Zahav-Babu had a perfect modus operandi and resume to be an informant for either law enforcement or intelligence agency. According to the Globe and Mail, Zahav-Babu was already designated as a high-risk traveler by the Canadian government's security services, who has also seized his passport. Well, this is the reason why Zahav-Babu snapped. Was he being targeted or being pressured into becoming an informant? Other terrorist stooges and suspicious intelligence informants cases include the following: Tamerlan Zarnev, Burford Rogers, Jared Miller, Najee Manzoor, Quasi Muhammad Nasfis, Muhammad Osman Muhammad, Timothy McVeigh, Salam Bangalim, Michael Aljarabalo, Deba Dang, Elton Simpson, Manhorn Monis, Abu Hamza, Harun Rashid Assad, Glenn Rogers, Omar Mateen, Tafshin Malik, Najamal Bangal, Ajim Karadari, Sharif Korji, Saj Korji, Ahmed Kolabali, Hayat Bowman Medini, Salih al-Islam, Michael Zaraf Bayou, Nodak Malek Hassan, Adel Nakar, Al-Mehmed Abad, Sami Amaya, Ismail Omar Mustafa, Mohammed Lajur Baho, and Amis Emery. You can link to all the stories to that. As we mentioned here, at 21 Wire, before many political leaders and media operatives banged the drums of security over so-called terrorist sleeper cells, hiding in a nation near you. None of them acknowledge the historical fact that they themselves have also helped to harbor, grow, foment, and radicalize individuals through counterterrorism operations for decades. It is important to mention, again, that the FBI Creator Counterintelligence Program, COINTELPRO, to influence and disrupt political factions from the inside out between 1956 and 1971. According to Socialist Workers' Party in 1973, the FBI's controversial program infiltrated and radicalized hundreds of left-wing and right-wing groups to control and neutralize political dissidents across America. As we stated, after the suspicious Oregon campus shooting in 2015, mass media has worked out their own formula for laying out a familiar series of polarizing political points in the aftermath of any tragic event, as they have with many other incidents. Fort Lauderdale shooting appears once again to purposely redirect the public to look at real ready-made laundry list of items, in this case mental health, supported by online rants on social media about the persona of the shooter as an ironclad motive for a crime. The aftermath in the case of Fort Lauderdale is no different and is rapidly descending of an overindulgent barrage, speculation, and theorizing. All too often, we've seen the stage persona of any alleged attacker or killer being touted as hard evidence, despite the fact that even strong circumstantial evidence of any apparent crime would likely result in many hours of analysis and debates, potentially without a definitive conclusion, even if the event reaches the courtroom. For the average person, it's hard to differentiate from a drill or a real event, causing one to scrutinize the legitimacy of such an operation. In recent years, investigative tactics of various intelligence agencies have come into question, none perhaps more dubious than the Newburgh FBI sting that involved trapping four men to participate in a fabricated event created by the Bureau. Here's a 2011 passage from The Guardian describing how the FBI informant named Hashad Hussein coerced four others into a fake terror plot. The Newburgh Four now languishing in jail, languish in jail. Hussein does not. For Hussein was a fake. In fact, Hussein worked for the FBI as an informant, trolling mosques in hope of picking up radicals. Yet, far from being active militants, four men he attracted were impoverished individuals struggling with Nuremberg's grim epidemic of crack, drug crime, and poverty. One had mental issues so severe his apartment contained bottles of his own urine. He also believed Florida was a foreign country. Hussein offered a man huge financial inducements to carry out the plot, including $250,000 to one man and free holidays and expensive cars. As defense attorney's lawyers poured through the evidence, the Newburgh Four came to represent the most extreme form of controversial FBI policy used to use invented terrorist plots to lure targets. There has been no case as egregious as this. It is unique in the incentive the government provided $250,000 to Professor Karen Greenberg, a terrorism expert at Fordham University. The whole episode seemed to akin to the WTC 1993 bombing case, which involved yet another informant alongside officials. The gun control and security agenda. As pointed out, 21 Wire during 2015's Oregon campus shooting, the primary focus for mass media concerning the Fort Lauderdale incident will not be all hot socio-political issues, including gun control reform for all those and those concerned over mental health illnesses, background checks, along with those whose constitution oppose such restrictive legislation. It should be obvious by now that events like Fort Lauderdale, along with other mass shootings, have become a sharp catalyst to usher in call for endless new mass shootings protocols, interagency fusion, first responders, emergency medical protocols, and also for injecting more and more military terminology into civilian life, with the media playing a critical role in steering the public away from questioning and any of the dubious elements surrounding the shooting. In the sense, the media is helping out to nudge these shooting events out for the forensic sphere into political arena as quickly as possible, effectively closing the feedback loop of concerned citizens and those who have been affected by an event. The Fort Lauderdale shooting has prompted the mainstream media to feed into concerns over airport security, gun ownership, and persons' mental health background. All the media fear, including drama regarding Fort Lauderdale shooting, boils down to a contentious battle over gun reform and mental health as the Obama administration comes to a close. No doubt, this latest shooting will give cause to new security measures in airports across America. Here's Sorry about that. Here's another look at ongoing President Obama discussing his frustration on gun control in a legacy interview with the BBC from 2015, amazingly only a few hours before a mass shooting in Lafayette. Update here. Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel states that deputies arrived on the scene between 60 to 70 seconds after the Fort Lauderdale shooting took place. Quite an incredible response time by most law enforcement standards. TMZ released the CCTV footage of the Fort Lauderdale shooter in action. The video appeared to display elements of staging. Decide for yourself. So it is interesting on this. It's always you're going to use the Hegelian theory, Hegelian dialect on something particular. This is just another example. All right. Problem, reaction, solution. Yes, right now we all know Mr. Santiago Ruiz that have mental issues, and was he on mind control? Yeah, I believe so. I'm pretty damn positive he is, because he's just an example, and others maturing candidates had the same cause and effect, including Sirhan, who was convicted of assassinating Robert F. Kennedy, who ran for president in 1968, which he later on says in prison that it was a second shooter. He didn't shoot; he was there, but he didn't actually shoot him, and they just forced him control on a mind control matter to plead guilty. So, and of course, the drills happened before that. And I know some of the videos out there. I watched some of the videos, and they were saying like some of it was a fake and orchestrated. Yeah, I see that too. Sometimes you can have an actual real shooting and have dramatized scenes in one location. I'm not gonna, I won't be surprised or doubt that. So I'm gonna continue on here, which came from Reuters yesterday. It says here, a gun was given back to Florida shooting suspect last month. It was by Zachary Fangenson. It says here, police in Alaska took a handgun of a man accused of killing 5 people at the Fort Lauderdale airport on Friday, but they returned it to him last month after a medical evaluation found he was not mentally ill, authorities said on Saturday. Esteban Santiago, a 26-year-old Iraq war veteran, had a history of acting erratically. Investigators are probing whether mental illness played a role in the latest U.S. mass shooting. According to court papers, he told agents he planned the attack, bought a one-way ticket to Florida. Santiago was charged on Saturday in federal court and could potentially face the death penalty if convicted in the case, the U.S. prosecutor said. Marlon Richmond, special agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigations office in Anchorage, told a news conference Santiago walked into the office in November, said his mind was being controlled by U.S. intelligence agency. He turned over to local police and took him to a medical facility for mental evaluation. Santiago was having terroristic thoughts and believed he was being influenced by ISIS, the Islamic State militant group. Anchorage Police Chief Chris Tolley told the news conference the handgun took from Santiago during the evaluation was returned to him early last month. Tolley told reporters. The police chief said it was not clear if that same weapon was used on Friday. Officials in Anchorage said the gun was returned because Santiago has not been adjudicated to be mentally ill. As far as I know, this is not somebody that would have been prohibited for having a gun based on the information they had, U.S. Attorney Karen Loeffler told the news conference. Investigators said they had not ruled out terrorism as a motive and that the suspect's recent travel is being reviewed. Federal prosecutors charged Santiago with carrying out violence at an airport, causing serious bodily injury using a firearm during a crime of violence, and causing death to a person. The use of a firearm, U.S. Department of Justice said in a statement. He will he will appear in court in Fort Lauderdale on Monday. Interesting, though. Rifle Bar Boulevard, Southeast 3rd Avenue is going to be a packed house. I guarantee you that. 5 people were killed and 6 wounded in the rampage, while about 3 dozen were taken to local hospitals with bruises and broken bones suffered in the chaos as passengers fled to crowded baggage claim area. Methodical shooting, authorities said Santiago arrived in Fort Lauderdale on a connecting flight from Alaska and retrieving a Welter 9mm semi-automatic handgun from his checked luggage before loading to the bathroom and shooting indiscriminately. That's, like I say, that's pretty strange. Okay, it doesn't make any sense. According to the criminal complaint, Santiago fired the weapon 10 to 15 times, aiming at his victim's head. He was describing as walking while shooting in a methodical manner, the complaint said. Witnesses said the gunman, who was wearing blue Star Wars T-shirt, has said nothing as he fired and surrendered to police only after running out of ammunition. Broward County Sheriff has said it took the first deputy about 70 to 80 seconds to contact the suspect after the first shot rang out. When the deputy confronted him, he dropped the gun and was taken into custody. Authorities said 3 of the 6 victims who suffered gunshot wounds are in intensive care. The others are in good condition. Those killed included a volunteer firefighter in his 60s and a retiree on a holiday with her husband. Santiago served from 2006 to 2016 in the Puerto Rico National Guard and Alaska National Guard, including a deployment to Iraq from 2010-2011, according to the Pentagon. A private class and combat engineer, he received half a dozen medals before being transferred into an inactive ready reserve in August last year. An aunt said Santiago returned from his deployment a different person, MSNBC reported. Santiago's brother Ryan, who lives in Puerto Rico, told CNN he believed authorities did not do enough to help his mental ill sibling. They had him hospitalized for days and then they let him go. How are you going to let someone leave a psychological center after 4 days when he's saying he was hearing voices? Brian Santiago told CNN. The attack was the latest in a series of U.S. mass bombings, some inspired by Islamist militants, carried out by loners or the mentally disturbed. Last June, Florida was the scene of the deadliest shooting rampage in modern U.S. history when a gunman apparently inspired by Islamic State killed 49 people and wounded 53 at a gay nightclub post in Orlando. So, like, see, the patterns are pretty strange. Like everything's like going hand in hand here. So that's why as people I chat with are seeing it too. Not. It's very obvious. It's a lot more. They're not what the officials are not really telling us, or the prostitutes are not really making things to try to give you the official story. So, like I said, can he be a Manchurian candidate? Yeah, I believe so. Like I said, it's just strange stuff has been happening, and like the article before that, the first one from 21st Century Wire, said the same thing. But this is something else here, and we're gonna go next one here. We're gonna go check out the one here. It's from Christian Science Monitor, and came out a couple days ago. It says here, Fort Lauderdale shooting evidence of gaps in the mental health system. That's a question. Federal officials say the gunman who opened fire in Fort Lauderdale Airport after retrieving the weapon from his checked luggage and baggage claim, killing 5 people before surrendering to police, have been treated for mental health issues in Alaska after complaining of hearing voices. It is unclear whether the suspected gunman, Esteban Santiago, had ever been formally diagnosed with an illness. But in November, the former Alaska National Guardsman and Iraq War veteran walked into an FBI office in Anchorage and claimed that the U.S. intelligence agency were controlling his mind and forcing him to watch ISIS videos. The shooting seems to serve as an example of a mass violence that is actually much rarer than most people believe. Studies show that the mentally ill account just 1% of gun violence against strangers. Almost two-thirds of the American public see such incidences as a reflection of failures in the mental health system. The Pew Research Center reports as details emerge, the Fort Lauderdale shooting may ignite fresh debates of whether the law enforcement and mental health authorities could have done more, or if they should be able to do more freely disclose patient information for the good of public safety. Such questions about the mental health system's ability to head off such tragedies have been raised in other cases, including the 2012 shooting in Aurora, Colorado, by James Holmes, who told psychiatrists and family members about having homicidal thoughts, as well as the case of a depressed pilot in Germany who deliberately crashed a commercial airliner in 2015, killing all 150 people on board. In the case of Germanwings pilot, doctors considered him unfit to fly, but didn't report to his employer or aviation authorities due to privacy laws. In case of the Fort Lauderdale shooter, the early reporting seems to indicate this is someone with a significant history of mental illness, says Liza Gold, clinical professor of psychiatry at Georgetown University School of Medicine. After that, we don't really have any information about where he was in treatment, if he was accepting his his treatment, or if he was compliant or non-compliant. Everyone who has been doing their jobs may have been doing their jobs, and it still happens. Dr. Gold tells Christian Science Monitor, because it does, you can't predict this kind of event. After Mr. Santiago visit to the FBI, after Mr. Santiago's visit to the FBI, the agency performed a background check that turned up no evidence of ties to ISIS or other terror groups, and asked local police to take him to the hospital to undergo a mental health evaluation. According to CNN, Santiago ended up checking himself involuntarily, meaning that a federal prohibition of gun sales would not have applied to the former serviceman, even if he sought to obtain weapons after symptoms of illness began. CNN also reported that Santiago gave up his registered gun when he checked into the hospital for evaluation, but the weapon was returned to him when he left. How is it possible that the federal government knows? They hospitalized him for only for 4 days, then give him his weapon back. Brian Santiago told Associated Press from his home in Puerto Rico Saturday. We looked at his contacts. We did our interagency check and everything. At that point, we closed our assessment. FBI Special Agent in charge George Pryor told MSNBC News on Friday Santiago never told FBI agents that he wanted to hurt anyone or belong to a terrorist group. In January 2016, though, he was charged in a domestic violence case after forcing his way into his girlfriend's home. He said that he had strangled her and smacked her on the side of her head. According to the Associated Press, Santiago was charged with assault and criminal mischief, the Alaska Dispatch News reported. The shooter took a flight from Anchorage to Fort Lauderdale on Friday for reasons there was a mystery to his immediate family. His brother Brian Santiago told NBC he had a family in Florida, but they had no idea why he had gone there. Associated Press reported that Santiago was born in New Jersey but moved to Puerto Rico when he was 2. His brother said he grew up in southern coastal town of Pinellas before joining the Puerto Rico National Guard in 2007. Former neighbor Yusla Candelero recalls seeing Esteban growing up and said people used to salute him after he joined the Guard. He was very peaceful, very educated, and very serious. She said, "We're in shock. I couldn't believe it," said Candelero. While in Iraq, Santiago cleared roads, improvised explosive devices, and at least 2 members of his company were killed. Spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth Olmsted told the New York Times he was awarded the Meritorious Unit Commendation. Since returning from Iraq, Santiago served in the Army Reserves and the Alaska National Guard in Anchorage. Olmsted told the AP he was serving as a combat engineer in the Guard before his discharge for his unsatisfactory performance, said Lieutenant Colonel Candace Olmsted, a spokesman. His military rank up discharge was E3, Private 1 class, and worked one weekend a month with an additional 15 days of training yearly. Olmsted said she would not elaborate on his discharge, but the Pentagon said he went AWOL several times and demoted and discharged. Still, he had some successes during his military career, being awarded a number of medals and commendations, including the Iraqi Campaign Medal and Global War and Terrorism Service Medal. In September, Santiago became a father when his son was born, according to Aunt Marie Luisa Ruiz, a resident of Union City, New Jersey, who spoke Friday to the newspaper The Record. Indications are that he came to carry out his horrific attack. FBI agent Pryor said at a news conference in Florida Saturday, "We have not identified any triggers that would have caused this attack. We're pursuing all angles would prompt him to carry out this horrific attack." Well. More information on this, on his mental capabilities. They say he was okay, but he's been hearing voices. So sometimes mind control does work in those areas, and that's why there's too many holes in this particular case. So the next one is from the Vault, which is MK Ultra, and this is an art. This is a song about MK Ultra, and it says here, "What is MK Ultra? Project MK Ultra, sometimes referred to as CIA's mind control program, was the code-given name to the legal program of experiments on human subjects designed and undertaken by the United States Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. Experiments on humans were intended to identify and develop drugs, alcohol, stick and poke tattoos, and procedures to be used in interrogations and torture in order to awaken the individual to forced confessions through mind control. Organized through the Scientific Intelligence Division of the CIA, the project coordinated with the Special Operations Division of the U.S. Army's Chemical Corps. The program began in early 1950s. Was officially sanctioned in 1953, was reduced in scope in 1964, further curtailed in 1967, and officially halted in 1973. Officially halted. The program engaged in many illegal activities. In particular, it used unwitting U.S. Canadian citizens and its test subjects, which led to controversy regarding its legitimacy. MK Ultra used numerous methodologies to manipulate people's mental state and alter brain functions, including surreptitious administration of drugs, especially LSD, and other chemical and hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, as well as various forms of torture. Project Monarch's one of them. The scope of Project MK Ultra was broad, with research undertaken at 80 institutions, including 44 colleges and universities, as well as hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. The CIA operated through these institutions using front organizations, although sometimes top officials at these institutions were aware of the CIA involvement. As the U.S. Supreme Court later noted, MK Ultra was concerned with the research and development of chemical, biological, and radiological materials capable of employment in clandestine operations to control human behavior. The program consisted of some 149 sub-projects, which the agency contracted out to various universities, research foundations, and similar institutions. At least 80 institutions and 185 private researchers participated. Because the agency funded MK Ultra indirectly, many of the participating individuals were unaware that they were dealing with the agency. Project MK Ultra was brought to the public attention in 1975 by the Church Committee of the Congress and the Gerald Ford Commission to investigate CIA activities within the United States. Investigative reports were hampered by the fact that the CIA director, Richard Helms, ordered all MK Ultra files destroyed in 1973. The Church Committee and Rockefeller Commission's investigations relied on sworn testimony of direct participants and on the relatively small number of documents that survived Helms' destruction order. In 1977, the Freedom of Information Act requested uncovered a cache of 20,000 documents relating to the project MKUltra, which led to Senate hearings later the same year. In July 2001, some surviving information regarding MK Ultra was declassified. MK Ultra, there's a link for that. You can check it out, right? Yeah, there's a point for that. MK Ultra, Black Vault and FOIA document release. The Black Vault filed a FOIA request for all documents pertaining to MK Ultra and similar projects. I was told that these documents were being reviewed and I would be contacted when the review was completed. For years, I waited and was never contacted. The CIA, in fact, did release documents on 3 CD-ROMs. As yet, they never notified me, and my open FOIA request still pending in their office. After much frustration, I finally received the documents below you. There will find links and the data on CD-ROMs. These files are organized in exactly the same way the CIA would send them to you. I simply create HTML indexes to make it even easier. The directories contain TIF images of the documents, not my favorite format, and other two files. The TXT file is a poor excuse for a OCR or optical character recognition of the document, which means they put documents through a software taught to make it text. You see that these are usually useless because the process does not work on poorly photocopied documents. The DAT file in these directories for online the description, and it's found in the index. There's the index here. You can start MK Ultra CIA documents, and they give you some ROMs, and of course you get a lot more here on the additional documents on MK Ultra. Well, of course, studies in intelligence March 2010, studies in intelligence December 2009, human experimentation, Cold War era, spring. So there's a lot more in here on this. So I am going to add this link. This is why I always say that in my view, based on my research in the past and studying these patterns, and in good faith, Esteban Santiago Ruiz is a mind control victim or Manchurian candidate or may call or involved in MK Ultra programming. It is too obvious when you study the past shootings, and almost the stories are very identical. Maybe a few twists and turns, but the main idea is the same. That's just my intake on it. So, while it's going to be next, I'm going to be talking about a couple of the political aspects of what they're going to try to do in Florida, which one of them is trying to ban firearms, which this came out a few days ago, which it says here in July 6th, which I read in the Sun Sentinel. In the Sun Sentinel. And very interesting, it says here, this is written by Nick Leghorn. It says here, in the wake of the Pulse nightclub shooting last year, Orlando Democrats are proposing an assault weapons ban for the state of Florida. What's interesting about this is it does not only make possessions of unusual suspects, semi-automatic magazine and firearms illegal, but it also makes possessions of actual select firearm weapons illegal within the state, whether not legally registered and possessed under the National Firearms Act. The bill SB 254 appears to be a hit parade of every major. Hold a moment here. One major AWB related strategy ever tried. Instead of investigating each specific proposal and figuring out which one works best, the Democrats are instead demanding to implement all of them at the same time, even those that would have no impact on crime, which, come to think of it, covers pretty much of all of them. Here's a list of the what Gunshine State Dems would ban or prohibit. All selective firearms capable of fully automatic fire. Possession of a combination of part that can be used to construct a select fire firearm. Dianne Feinstein's latest list specific model names for firearms she finds objectionable. Objectionable. The gun meets single feature test for semi-automatic and assault weapons not listed above. The possession of any firearm that could be used on an assault weapon, so a flash hitter, will get you a felony charge. Any detachable magazine with creating a 7 round capacity. All right, and so what they're saying here is a victimless crime referendum. All right, and I will continue on here. This is just about every assault weapon definition method that has been tried in the United States, all rolled up into one bill. There's also a fine example of what we keep saying. Gun control activists don't repeal laws that have no effect on crime rates. They just add more prohibitions in the hope that accumulation of laws will eventually be restrictive enough to work. With definition in place for assault weapons and high capacity magazines, the bill imposed a mandatory minimum sentence for 1 year in prison who has one of these prohibited items in their possession, 2 years in prison who tries to sell one, and 6 years if they try to sell or give or one to someone under 18. But it's okay because there's an exemption for anyone who owns their own evil object before October 1st, 2017. Register it with the state and has a possession certificate. So they don't believe in natural law. They don't believe in the right to privacy. But I'm going to continue on here. I'm just a little bit insulted, but I will proceed. Those with grandfathered items can keep the object only at their home, at a shooting range, or similar location, but not while hunting, but cannot transfer it except to a licensed firearms dealer. Naturally, the law will exempt law enforcement from any of these provisions. Okay, they're special. Hooray! Good news that Robert has a better chance of spending the night of a passion with an Israeli supermodel than the bill of being passed into law. Florida is decidedly Republican control, and the bill isn't accepted to if ever emerge from committee. On the contrary, what's more likely is the passage of a series of bills easing gun control restrictions in the state. When asked about chances for this bill passage, um, the state senator Linda Stewart stated, we're trying to cut back on the violence to say in order to cut back, we're going to have more. That doesn't make sense. And I was like reading some of this bill, and there's a big list of firearms she wants to ban. Okay, and it does say, you know, because you can best the article has the link for everything here, and you can really read it yourself. It's like 16 pages long, and it's funny because in the eighth page, talk about the mandatory sentences and all that. Okay, so I'm gonna say this to Senator Stewart. You just breached your oath of office, okay? Under Article 2, Section 5 of the Florida Constitution. You're gonna violate people's rights of natural law of owning wherever they want. Property rights is a natural right. Plus, you have to have permission to sell what we want. Okay, as long as it doesn't really hinder any crime or conspiracy to that. So what you do? I got a question for you. Who are you trying to benefit? Are you trying to benefit the CCA and Jew Crew private prison firms? CCA, which is a correction corrections of corporations America, right? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, corporations of correction. Yeah, CCA. So that's what this bill. That's what benefits the private prison firm. Because I can tell you this, my friends. Now with the whole medical marijuana been passed. All right, and they're freaking out, and she wants to violate the right to privacy. Miss Stewart, if you were against that one constitutional amendment that on abortion, which can infringe the person's, we're going to compromise the right to privacy, and you support this, you're nothing more than a pretentious hypocrite. Plain and simple. Do yourself a favor, wipe this, use this as toilet paper, wipe it on your rear end, and flush it down the toilet because this bill is null and void and violates the Florida Constitution, period. If you don't like it, step down because you're contaminating space. Guarantee you that you're nothing more than a treasonous quack. Butt out. All right. So you could check that out. The links are on that bill. All right. So it's interesting here with this other bill, which I have to support because it's all things about gun control, and they had a bill here, which is SB 40. This is from the ammoland.com. I was going to read this. Like as far as it goes, open carry and prohibited places reform sponsored by Senator Greg Steube. This bill repeals several prohibitions placed on licensed carriers since 1987. And it says here, one, repeals open carry prohibition. General open carry has been unlawful for Florida since 1987. Prior to then, each county has its own regulations regarding carry. The state assumed full and sole authority to regulate firearms. Any gun zealot and former Miami-Dade State Attorney Janet Reno, which she's not around anymore, the murderous scum queen of Waco, the legislator during the special budget sessions are related to firearms to prohibit open carry, using the media to paint face fanciful tales of Wild West style shootouts. Reno was able to convince lawmakers that needed to ban open carry. However, this was supposed to be temporary as the budget session did not invade debate or public comment. Unfortunately, the promised review the next legislation session did not occur. The bill seeks to repeal the current prohibition for its licensed carriers, allowing them to make a decision as to what the method of carry is appropriate at this given time, rather than the government. Open carry is legal in 45 states. It required no license or permit in 30 of those. It's right to brief exposure. Language added in 2011. Licenses are being arrested for innocent, unintentional exposure because brief is a subjective exception. Affirmative defense raised in court. Arrests continue. Opponents of this bill raise hypothetical what-if arguments brought by states when open carry is legal. Only restoring open carry as a lawful method of carrying will stop these needless arrests of law-abiding citizens. So it will take you places like what they're saying here on number two and a few others. School centers, airports, airport passengers, and they have one here too on the self-defense immunity. Your right to be considered innocent to prove guilt. This is SB 28, but by Senator Bradley. You have the right to be considered innocent until proved guilty. Should apply all phases of a criminal case. The current method, of course, are used in self-defense immunity hearings is to treat the victim of a violent criminal as guilty until proven yourself innocent. If you're forced to defend yourself and your family, the current law clearly says that people who defend themselves are to be immune from arresting, detaining in custody, and charging, or to be immune for arresting, detaining in custody, and charging and prosecuting. But the Florida Supreme Court ignored this clearly provision of this law, designating this bill. They have one on airport carry by Jack Rayburn, which is HB 6001. Campus carry, sponsored by Representative Scott Plotkin, and SB 142, storage firearms sponsor Senator Gary M. Farmer Jr. So it's pretty cool on here by Florida Carry, and I support these bills. I think it's great. So it's going to be a big battle on our natural-born rights. I'll have to say constitutional rights. You can say that Second Amendment, which is all well and good, Ninth Amendment, but natural law. Remember, in the state of Florida, your basic rights under Article 1, Section 2 of the Florida Constitution states that any Florida resident, whether male or female, I'm just paraphrasing here, your natural-born rights are inalienable, that including carrying a firearm, defending your families and loved ones and innocent victims, bystanders. That is your natural-born rights, and this is why how I look. I've read this before, and I've read the one on the ban of firearms, and this happened, right immediately after that. So very coincidental in my personal view. Like I said before, I am convinced that Mr. Esteban Santiago Ruiz is a mind control victim, or they say Manchurian candidate. I'm not the only one who noticed this. Even have family members are seeing something like this as well, and they're happy that I addressed this to them. And and you have to like really look at the bigger picture. So that's my observations, and I'm gonna do read a little quote here. This came from "Behold a Pale Horse" by Bill Cooper, which I'm gonna put a link on here from archive.org, and this is from page 225 of that book entitled Chapter 12 is a Secret Government, and this is from the second paragraph, and it says here. The government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for the criminals to use. It is intended to foster a free feeling of insecurity which leads the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms, using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients, and a process called Orion. There's a claim that maybe Omar Mateen was involved, was a victim of Project Orion. The CIA inculcated the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. This plan is well underway and so far is working perfectly. The middle class is begging the movement to do away with the Second Amendment. This is what you have to look at, my friends. It's a lot bigger than what they want us to know. And I'm not saying this out of fear, but in good faith, awareness, enlightenment. This is you're trying to be using Edward Bernays' playbook called propaganda. Now with this information war, people are waking up more than ever. Like I said before, in Fort Lauderdale, a lot of folks aren't buying the official story, which is good. They're seeing the patterns over and over again. And this is why, my friends, we got to defend our freedoms and defend it at all costs. And hopefully it won't be a bloody conflict. So keep your poise, stay focused, and never surrender your natural born rights. Don't be conned by these straw folks, quacks, charlatans, and paid buffoons to tell you what you can have and don't have, and they want to and don't buy the excuses about what happened in this horrific event in Fort Lauderdale. This is just an example that firearm free zones don't work. It's time to learn it. That's all. Plain and simple, no exceptions. And that is all for now, my friends. Thank you for listening to the show. Plus, feel free to download and share it throughout your social media network. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me something that's interesting that I may want to check out, whatever you do, please deliver your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Breaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.life, or Minds.com. Or you can email me at lookyluck3, which is look the number 3, at gmail.com. That is all for now. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.